Hello, my name's Melanie Yetter, and this is my story. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana in the early 70s. My mother was a 17-year-old single mother. She was actually married to my father at the time. He was in the military and was stationed in Korea. During her 8 month of pregnancy, he had my mother served with divorce papers. So I was born to a 17-year-old single mother. Shortly after my first birthday, I was taken away from my mother because she was in a very abusive relationship with a man who beat me and tried to drown me in the kitchen sink because he had to change my dirty diaper. And when I was taken away from my mother, I was placed in the foster care system, where I remained for 6 to 7 years. And although I do not have a relationship with my father still to this day, I am grateful to him for one thing. That is that he requested that I be placed with his childhood pastor, John Honey, and his wife, Joanne Honey, whom I called Papi and Nani. And the reason why I called them Papi and Nani was because I was not able to call them Mommy and Daddy. I was so young. I'm grateful for them for many reasons, but most of all, for their compassion and for their kindness and for giving me a spiritual path and great faith. So although I was in foster care, I was very, very blessed to be placed in a loving home. After living in a very safe and secure home for 6, almost 7 years, my mother was granted custody of me. So I returned to live with her and my 2 younger brothers. Life was very different living with my mother. At this point, she was an active addict. She was living in public housing and was on welfare. Our home was full of neglect, conflict, and addiction. Due to my mother's inability to support us both emotionally and financially, school was very hard for us. Thankfully, this is where I met Miss O'Brien, my speech therapist, in 4th grade. I'm grateful to her because not only did she really take me under her wing, but she was a wonderful role model. I worked with her from 4th grade until about 7th grade every summer, and that's how I was able to buy school supplies and school clothes so that school wasn't so hard. Life at home most definitely continued to be full of conflict and instability, so much so that by the age of 16, I was really forced to make the decision to move out so that I could work and feed myself and seek some form of stability. This led me to then, by the age 19, to totally leave Indiana and move to California. Although I was making decisions as an adult, I was still very much a child. Moving to California proved to be a very good decision, and I feel very blessed that I was able to start a new life here. I guess the thing that I am most grateful for is that this is where I was able to start my own family with my daughter Paige and my son Jude. This is where I met and married my husband of 20 years, Joe, and also where I found my spiritual home, my community. So California has been very good to me. So at this point, I would like to talk about my grandmother, Ava now. I waited until now to bring her into the story because it's still very difficult for me to talk about her. My grandmother was the primary reason why I believe I'm sitting here today. And she was my attachment figure. I say quite often to people, she was my soulmate, and the person that really influenced me the most in my life. She was my best friend. And moving to California, it really strengthened our relationship. We stayed in touch every day. You can't even imagine what the phone bills were like. So we stayed in touch every day, and we also made a point of still seeing each other at least 3 to 4 times a year. She still lived in Indiana. My grandmother and I remained best friends up until the time that she passed in October of 2001 of lung cancer. And this is the moment that I call the time in my life that I call the Great Depression. I had absolutely no tools to self-soothe myself or to even handle what that grief felt like. And it had seemed like everything that I had suppressed, all the trauma that I went through in my childhood, everything that I discussed earlier just came down on me like a ton of bricks. I guess I could, if I could explain it in any way, I would say when my grandmother passed away, it was like the day the whole world went away. I suffered from clinical depression after the passing of my grandmother. I think I laid in bed for about a year, and I sought therapeutic alliances and was prescribed many different prescription drugs to try and help me feel again or not feel again. I tried every avenue I could to try and comfort and nurture my grief or understand what was happening to me, until it got to a point one day where I woke up and that path was not working for me anymore, and I knew there had to be something different. And I knew if I didn't seek out something different that I would probably end up dying in that bed. So this is where I began my spiritual journey. I took my first yoga class. I did teacher training. I ended up in India. And the rest is history. I am Melanie Yetter. I am a warrior. I am a survivor. And I am my own best friend.